So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
This is the first of some Sunday talks I'm hoping to give every Sunday consistently, and hopefully we'll build some spiritual community here. My name is John Mark Shaw. All of you know me, so I don't need to introduce you from scratch. All of my family's here, my mother and father and my wife. So the name of the talks is Deepen Your Spiritual Roots and Grow Your Tree of Life, living a spiritually centered and self-actualized life. And I want to express my point of view, which really is that the inner life and the outer life are connected. And I think a lot of what's been challenging for all of us and in our culture about spirituality and religion is that it's either been something that we've been disillusioned by because we can't believe in it anymore, or more recently in some of the New Age spirituality, it seems very detached from our real life. And so people who are like myself, living in the world, I live next door, I run a company, lots of challenges in life, lots of real life challenges that I live through every day. People feel that somehow spirituality is not helpful to their everyday life. And so my premise here is that in order to build a tree of life that is flourishing with wealth and abundance and health and all of the things that you want in your life, really it's about turning within and not looking to the outside, but learning how to turn within and do the inner work. And from the inner work, like with an actual tree in nature, deepening its roots to grow. You know, a tree in nature needs to have strong, deep roots that grow into the soil. It needs fertile soil and a thick trunk. And from that blossoms a healthy tree. And, you know, part of our culture and how we've become so disconnected is that we think we're different from nature. We think that somehow the laws of nature don't apply to human beings, but they very much do. So a lot of my work is about finding organic metaphors and real life metaphors for describing spiritual teachings, which is, I think, a path towards helping everyday people who are living in the world and who don't get to go to retreats and monasteries and, you know, meditate 10 hours a day, to have a real vital and living spirituality. So really that's my goal. A little bit about me. I was blessed with loving parents and supportive parents who are here with me today, as evidenced. But I think that there's a central kind of life symbol from my youth that on my spiritual path that I want to talk about, and I want to kind of ask you all to start, and part of what I'm trying to teach is to start thinking about our life symbols, about how we can make sense of our life and our journey through some of the symbolic moments in our lives, situations, relationships, and start to create meaning and start to see the perfection of the experiences and see our life as a healing journey, as an evolutionary journey that is moving us towards our wholeness, towards our self-actualization, towards fulfillment of our potential. And so my life symbol is that I want to talk about to start off with as a symbol of the beginning of my spiritual life is that I was born half Catholic and half Jewish from two different parents from different religions. But what was interesting about that is that it's the wrong parent to be legally that religion. So in the Jewish religion, I'm not technically Jewish enough. Like for the joke with Donna's family is, I'm not really Jewish enough, but they like me, right? So I was okay, but really I'm not Jewish enough. I'm half Jewish, but it's not the right half, right? And you know, and what's funny is that in the Christian religion, the Catholic religion, it's the father. So I was sort of mutually excluded from religion. And, you know, no, I wasn't, and I had some grounding, and I had some...
Can I say something?
No, there'll be a time for Q&A. I know how you have strong feelings, but this is a chance for me to speak about it. Okay. So this is a symbol for me, and also I think is interesting as I look back on my life, not surprising that I became an interfaith minister, because the beginning of my life had this strange, interesting Christianity and Judaism that I was excluded from but interested in and a part of. And so interfaith, and the definition of interfaith is really honors all paths. And I've studied Buddhism, Islam, all the yogic traditions, and lots of new age spirituality, what's called New Thought spirituality. And but to get back a little bit to the journey, I think that the reality is that despite the loving upbringing, I really had a spiritually rootless early life. I think that it's a very common reality in our culture right now that that religion and traditional religion has really lost its meaning for people's lives, because the orthodoxy and the rules and the regulations and the teachings have lost their life for most people in our culture, and so they've become disillusioned with religion. And so unfortunately, I think the baby has been thrown out of the bathwater with religion, and that all of the beautiful, amazing truth teachings, and we'll talk about truth in a little while, but the reality of truth is that it doesn't matter if it was said by your daughter, your son, or your mother, or your friend, or Eckhart Tolle, or Jesus Christ, or Buddha. You know it and you feel it in your body when someone says something that's true. And many of the spiritual teachings, when you study all of the world's religions and spiritual teachings, the true teachings are all the same, right? Because there really is only one set of universal truths. And if you don't like the God metaphors, it's really just the laws of the universe. And we're going to talk a little bit about just sort of the physics of the universe and the way the universe operates, the universe of energy, and the way it operates. So my passion is to try to get people, and a lot of people here are already on the spiritual path, and I do some teaching for deeper teaching, and I run some workshops where people who are already on the path do deep healing work. But I'm also trying to get people who have been disillusioned by religion and spirituality to come on to thinking about their lives in a different way. So disillusionment from traditional religion and a personal God and praying to a man with a beard in the sky, and also disillusionment from that sort of detached, airy-fairy, new agey spirituality that doesn't seem rooted in our real lives, in our bodies, and in the challenges of life. And I think it's not surprising, as I look back at my journey, that someone for whom the early part of his life was spiritually rootless would become a teacher of spiritual rootedness, because that's really the way life paths go, right? What I needed to learn is really what I'm most qualified to teach. And so part of what I'm trying to do in sharing my journey is to get folks to look at their own lives in that way. So the first teaching really, and I'm going to go through some ideas, all of which reams and millions of pages have been written about, and whole religions and spiritual teachings have been founded on. So this is sort of a survey talk, and a lot of the talks will be kind of survey. So I'm going to go through some concepts that are really huge concepts pretty quickly. So the first concept, so what does it mean to live a spiritually centered life? And so the first thing is about where and when your spiritual center is located. And your spiritual center is located in your body in the present moment. And frankly, it took me years on the spiritual path to learn this. And I didn't really explode in terms of the power of what was coming through me until I got this. So I really want everybody, even if, and I'd also really ask you, you may have heard a lot of these words before. And I read words and words and words for years, but it's when they sink into your body that you really start to get it in a new way. So I'd ask you to sort of, if you have a preconceived notion about some of these words that I'm going to say, they're just pointers to a deeper reality that can really only be felt inside of your body. And the main sort of, I don't want to call it an enemy, but the challenge of getting centered spiritually is that we're stuck in our minds. And many of us in this room, pretty much all of us, because I know all of you, have very gifted minds, very super educated minds, right? And so we believe that the mind is where our spiritual center is. We believe that life is about figuring it out, more education. And a little bit back to my path, because I was rootless, spiritually rootless, like so many in our culture, what that means is we look outside of ourselves to find our good, right? We look to consumption and acquisition and achievement, right? And success and money to get our good outside of ourselves. So for me, my path of that was education, higher education. I was a great student. I was a straight A student. Why was I a straight A student? Partially because I was lucky to have parents with good brains, right? Partially because I needed to get the A so that I would be approved of. I was looking for my good outside of myself. I was looking for my good in my mind and figuring things out, and that's where I think our culture is very rootless, right? We're looking outside of ourselves, and the truth is, all of us are worshiping something. And if you kind of remember one concept today, or hopefully you remember several of them, what are you worshiping? In that time, I was worshiping achievement, right? Because a lot of people say, I don't like religion, I don't like spirituality, I don't want to worship anything. But are you worshiping the mighty dollar? Are you worshiping success? Are you worshiping art? Are you worshiping, a big bank account, whatever it is? So sort of back to where your spiritual center is located, it's located in your body. And there's a few points in it, but I'd really like you to focus on the pelvic area. And to maybe right now, take a few breaths into your body, close your eyes, and try to, this beautiful, amazing brain is not supposed to be in charge. We all have been taught that it's supposed to be in charge. What's supposed to be in charge is your center. And the brain is the servant of the spiritual center. So just take a few deep breaths. All of the resistance you might be having to what I'm saying, try to let it go. And just try to feel your body. Put your hands on your center, on your pelvis. And try to feel that place. So this is what meditation is about. This is what yoga is about. This is what spiritual practice is about. It's about getting out of your head and getting out of the future and the past and getting right into the present moment, Freudian slip, in your body. Right? So this is where God is. Okay? So that old illusion that there's a man in the sky or that there is some external version of something to worship, that's old-fashioned religion, and most people are so stuck in resisting the old-fashioned religion they can't feel this. This is your connection to universal intelligence. When you are in your center, when you are connected to your center, you are connected to the wisdom of the universe. You are connected to the energy, and in this moment, there is an infinite supply of peace and love and joy and happiness. Yes, happiness. And if we can learn to live in this place, we can actually be happy or peaceful or okay at least, regardless of what is happening in our lives. That's the goal. Can we be at peace? Can we be in our spiritual center regardless of what's going on in our outside lives? Money's tight, kids are screaming and yelling, physical ailments. This is a place you can always return to. So hopefully you felt something there. And I would ask for you to try to spend some time reconnecting with this place. This is where God is, source, divine mind, universal intelligence, whatever you prefer to call it. We are all it. We are all connected to it. and all of the old religions that said we are supposed to worship something outside of ourselves were just off, because none of the original teachers, the Jesuses, the Buddhas, the Krishnas, none of them ever said that. But the religions were made, and we won't get into bashing religion. So the key of new thought and universal spirituality, really, it is, there's a couple of quotes from the Bible. First of all, the kingdom of God is within you, right, was a pointer, and Jesus said this. But people didn't really get that. They didn't like that. They wanted it to be worship him, right? Those are the quote-unquote esoteric teachings, the deeper meaning, right? The other major quote that really spurs on the whole New Thought movement, the whole modern universal spirituality movement, is these things and greater will you do. Which means, don't worship me, is what Jesus was saying. And I'm going to quote every religion, over the course of these talks, every teacher, my wife, my mother, my father, everyone, because it's all God, and it's all coming to us, right? But the whole point is, don't worship me. I'm trying to give you some principles to live by. Live like me, and you can do even greater things than I can, right? So it's not the outside God, or source, or spiritual truth. It's the inside, in our bodies. So the second major principle is that as within, so without, or that the inner is cause and the outer is effect. And what that means is that instead of looking on the outside to make changes in our lives, which is how I was taught to race and dance as fast as I could to fix the problems of my life, it's about starting to think about your life, about turning inside and turning within. And there's lots of great quotes and teachings about that. So what that means is, if you want to have a successful life, if you want to grow your tree of life, turn within and deepen your spiritual roots. So one of the great quotes that became a best-selling movie, essentially, about the law of attraction is, "It is done unto you as you believe." Right? That's Jesus, right? But it's been said in a million different ways by every single religion, which essentially means the inside is cause and the outside is effect. And so the physics, we'll talk a little bit about physics. Everybody knows, everybody's pretty caught up on modern physics. We're all just energy and subatomic particles vibrating at different frequencies. And therefore, and in physics, in the universe, like attracts like. So we have a vibrational frequency that we emit, like a radio, right? We send out a frequency into the universe, and it is very specific. And it vibrates at the frequency that we are living in our bodies. And so we are attracting experiences and circumstances and people that are a match to our vibrational frequency, right? So teachings and movies like The Law of Attraction and The Secret, they're right, but they're not really telling you that it's not so easy. So what it sounds like is, if I think a good thought, it's going to happen, right? But the spiritual work, and sometimes it is work, is that you can't fake your frequency, right? If I believe I'm not worthy, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, right? And I have those feelings and repressed memories and beliefs living in my body. The Buddhists call those samskaras. If those are living in my body, I can talk about I want the new Ferrari. I can think about it all day. I can do great image boards about it. And I could put the house up there and the perfect partner and all of that stuff. But you can't fake your vibrational frequency. If you are holding those beliefs, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not lovable, or a big family of lots of ones in the middle of those, right? But if you are holding that, and you're holding that from your youth or from past pain that was never really felt, you're not going to attract the partner. You're not going to attract the abundance. You're going to attract, and here's the tricky part, you're going to attract experiences that are a match to that frequency. So that sounds a little scary, but one of my propositions is that that's perfect. Because I want to attract, if you think about it, so I'm going to attract experiences that trigger those old feelings in me, right? Because if I can trigger those old feelings, first of all, I can't help it. I'm going to keep attracting. So if I can attract experiences and allow myself to feel the feelings and to experience the consciousness and the awareness that I didn't let myself experience in some of our childhood challenges and difficulties or in our past life, things that we held down that are stuck inside us, I have an opportunity to heal and release those energy patterns that are unfinished, that repress pain, those unfelt feelings, those beliefs that we started to form. So another of the quotes from the Bible is, I'm sorry to be quoting the Bible today, but I'm going to quote everything. To him that hath, more shall be given. To him that hath not, even that which he hath shall be taken away. Which sounds yucky, right? I can see your face, Eileen. It sounds like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and life isn't fair. Right? So a lot of people read that and were like mad at the Bible for that. But actually what that means is to him that hath means to him or her that is vibrating at the frequency of fullness, of wholeness, of success, who believes that they are worthy, who believes that they are lovable. To that person, more of that will come. And to the person who believes that they are unworthy, that they are unlovable, that they are not good enough, they will keep attracting more evidence of unworthiness. They will never meet the partner that they want. They will never have that success in their lives that they're working so hard at. And I spent most of my life working really hard on the outside and not getting anywhere. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of meeting my wife, right? And another great example of spiritual truth is when somebody said it recently and somebody said it 2,500 years ago. So Rumi and Marianne Williamson, and many, many people have said this, have said that seek not love, but seek rather the internal barriers to its arrival. Okay? Which means, and I took that seriously once my teacher at that time, August Gold, taught me what that meant, which is, I was on Match.com. I'm a handsome guy. I had some reasonable success in my life. You know, I've met girls in my life before, no problem. But I was seeking and seeking and seeking and seeking and seeking, but I was not finding, right? Because I had some unresolved internal barriers to love and partnership inside of me. So the work became stop being on Match.com, stop focusing on the outside, and start working on the inside and where you're not loving yourself. And I know a lot of this is stuff you've heard a million times and it sounds trite. But start doing the inner work on what is standing in the way of your really believing that you are worthy of love and actually really loving yourself. So that when you are loving yourself and you have a spiritual connection to your source, you are in love. You are holding love. You have the havingness of half of love. I am love, and then I attract love into my life. Right? Or the older way to do it is to keep going down the old path of I'm not worthy, there's challenges internally about my attracting a real loving and open partner, so I'm going to keep having the same relationship I had. I don't know about you, but I had about 27 of the exact same relationship, over and over and over and over again. Because I didn't do the internal work, so life kept trying to trigger me to face some of my internal barriers to love, but I didn't want to see it. I wasn't ready. So going inside, letting go. August was like, let go. This is painful to hear. Think about the fact that you may never find your partner, and can you live and be happy regardless? And so doing inner child work, connecting with myself, and also opening up to more friendship. And so I had a birthday, it was 2 years ago. It was the first time I really threw a big birthday party for myself. And I had a lot more friends that I had had in the past because I had started to open up. And I really felt around that time that on the day of my birthday, I felt, and I was working with this phrase, I am rich in love. And I really felt it. And I was surrounded by people who loved me, and I had let go of finding my partner. I don't know if I had let go permanently, but I had achieved that feeling. 5 weeks later, I met Donna. Okay? 5 weeks later, not from the seeking and the Match.com and the trying hard and the losing weight and the buying new clothes, but from the achieving, my life is rich in love. I am rich in love, and I'm okay if it doesn't come. And really finding the okayness. And then she arrived. So that's sort of an example of what I'm talking about. Right now we're facing some, we're going through trying to make a baby, and 6 different people in the last 2 weeks said the same thing to me. I know a couple that was going through fertility stuff, and then they decided to adopt. And then right after they adopted, and this is one of my father's oldest friends, was a story I'd heard about this before, and then right after they adopted, they got pregnant. So how does that relate to him or her, that half? Right? They have a baby. That unmet need to be a parent has been met. And so they are vibrating at the frequency of love and parenthood. And then the universe attracts a baby. Right? And so there's a million examples of that. So one more of the teachings is that when you are connected to your spiritual center, you are accessing universal intelligence. In the Bible, they call it, actually the Old Testament, the still small voice. We call it intuition. When you are in your center, you are starting to hear the guidance of your true self. And there's a few elements to that. First of all, to start to try to trust that our greatest passions, and this is from a teacher named Ernest Holmes, are the will of God. Again, old language. He was a teacher in the 1950s. Our deepest passions are the will of God wanting to express through us. So what does that mean? That thing that you most want to do, being a life coach, right? What I'm doing right now, is the will of the universe wanting to express itself through you. So there's a great branch of of spirituality called evolutionary spirituality. And it teaches that instead of calling it God, it calls it the evolutionary impulse. And what's exciting about that is that it says we are connected because we are a part of the entire 14 billion year old universe. And that the energy of our expression, what I am doing right now in this moment, is connected to the Big Bang that happened 14 billion years ago. And that my desire and passion to speak and give this talk and to live my dharma or my calling is the will of the universe expressing through us and as us. And when you have found your passion and your purpose and your calling and the thing that you love, instead of worrying, which is what I did, I'm not going to be good enough, how am I going to make it work? To trust that my passion and my calling is in alignment with the source, with that explosion of creating more conscious life over the last 14 billion years. And so I can use that energy and get out of the way, and I can trust that I can listen to the guidance. And as the Tao says, all of life is a movement toward our wholeness. That the universe is expressing through us, and it is wanting us to grow and self-actualize. And I don't have the same passion that you have, right? Eileen is an artist, is making this beautiful art online, and she is acting in commercials. I don't want to do that. That's not my dharma. But it's happening, and there's excitement in that, right? And my wife is a health coach. There's all of these ways that the universe wants to express through us, and to start to trust, which is the other part of the teaching I want to talk about today, that to see our life, to see the perfection of our lives, and to see really that our life is a healing journey, as I said before, and that to start to look at our life and our experiences as our teacher. So when I'm meditating in my center and I get an intuition, what is the universe saying to me, or God, or whatever you want to call it, universal intelligence? Also, through my experiences, every single thing that's happening, how do I make sense of my life? How do I start to say, that happened for a reason? Or, I attracted that. That's the common way of saying it happened for a reason, and that sounds too trite, and it is too trite. It happened, I attracted this experience, it was painful. How is that helping me heal some buried samskara, some buried pain or memory, so that I can release that, so I can expand and grow in that area? How is this bringing up my unworthiness, my not being good enough, my I can't do it, my thinking small? So to start to listen to, and also, maybe I should go to this talk. Trusting the universe. I hear something in a movie. I get an email, and I've gotten 27 emails, but it's the only one I want to read, and it's about a book that I'm going to read. So a great book about this topic is Wayne Dyer, right, who's a great self-help teacher. He wrote this new book, I Can See Clearly Now, and it's all about how, in retrospect, I can see clearly now how my life, all of the lessons of my life. And he talks about great aspects of that. And so, for me, my alcoholism, at first was tremendously shameful for me. Because one of the things that was the process, what came from my rootlessness, was that I was looking for my good outside, and I was a straight A student, and I was getting the A's, and I was getting the approval. And then I went out to Hollywood to try to be a filmmaker, and I failed. Or at least I failed in the short term, right? And because I had no outside confirmation of being a good person, a successful person, I wasn't getting an A anymore. I couldn't handle it, right? And that's really when my alcoholism began. Because I was rootless. I had no sense of self-worth. My worth was based on, am I getting an A? Do people like me? Do they think I'm handsome? Do they like the way I dressed? And over and over and over, all of those things. And so, to start to think about the way I'm asking you to, so what is the lesson in my alcoholism? The lesson was that was my spiritual awakening. Right? That was when life said to me, it's time to start turning within. Just like that mutually excluded, half Jewish, half Catholic thing about that spiritual rootlessness. My alcoholism was a chance for me to say, stop, this is not working. It's about turning within. And those of you who know the 12 steps, it's all about a spiritual path. And then it's all about sharing the spiritual path. And actually the 12 steps wasn't my path, but it is a great path for sobriety. So how can we learn to trust our lives and our experiences and start to think about how our experiences are meant to either heal us or to guide us? How do we start listening to the lessons? So another facet of what's going on, for me is I had a pretty in-control life that looked good on the outside before I met Donna. I started I started a business, and it was starting to do pretty well. And I was doing a lot of spiritual work, and I had a very safe I was living alone, so I wasn't having a partner who was bringing up any of my stuff. And my business was small and manageable, and I was able to be the hero and do a great job. Now my life is grown with having a wife who is wonderful and challenging and bringing up all of my stuff, and a business that is too big for me to manage on my own with my partner. We need a lot of help, and there's a lot of things going wrong, even though there's a lot of things going right. And so my need from the past was to have a small life that I could control and feel safe in, that I could feel peaceful in. And that all got exploded, right? And every day in every way, something is pushing up against my need for things to be okay at work. We have 400 employees and 5 restaurants, and there is never a day that things are okay at work. And if I need things to be okay at work, for me to be okay, then I will never be okay for the rest of my life. Right? So one of the great stories about and teachings that about this whole trusting the universe, and that our life is a healing journey, and that our experiences are our teachers and they're perfect for us. It actually came from Plato in the Republic. It was something called the myth of and basically the story is that, and this myth was popularized by an archetypal psychologist named James Hillman, who created something called the acorn theory. And what the acorn theory says was, and this is a paraphrasing of Plato, is that we're born with in Plato it was a daemon or a guardian angel who basically knew our true soul, our true gifts, and was the keeper of our destiny. So if you like to go back to the organic metaphor, that we're born with an acorn, and our acorn has all of the potential of the oak tree, right? And so we're born with this destiny that is encoded into this acorn. And that the myth says that we have a guardian angel who is escorting us through life, which is not something that we necessarily, maybe that's not a form that we can really believe in. But what it does talk about is that that the circumstances of our birth were exactly created for the fulfillment of our destiny and for the unfoldment of those gifts. As challenging as they were, or not, as specific, as in some cases tumultuous and painful, and sometimes dysfunctional, or sometimes functional here and not so functional there, that we are born into this earth to the exact parents, in the exact circumstances that are perfect, fertile soil for the development of what our destiny is. And so that's very triggering thought, right? Because this didn't happen and that didn't happen. They didn't support me. They didn't see me for who I really was. But what if all of that was perfect? Because what if your life path was about working through those challenges, and that's what the evolution of your soul was about? And so, similar to that, there is another psychological teaching about partnership, and it's by Harville Hendrix, which I know everybody's heard of, and it's the imago theory of relationships, which basically says that the partners that we choose are imagos or images of the qualities of our caretakers when we were children, both the great qualities and the challenging qualities, and also that they have qualities that are part of our unfulfilled, repressed talents and gifts. So what that is basically saying is, in the dating world that some of us are still in, that I was at for many, there's going to be people who you feel connected to and people who you don't feel connected to, even if they look good on paper, as a lot of people say, right? Even if they're handsome or beautiful, you just don't have this kind of connection, a soul connection. And sometimes those soul connections are very challenging connections. Sometimes they're tempestuous. Sometimes they're bringing stuff up. But what this theory is saying is that it's designed for our self-actualization. These relationships are designed to push our buttons, designed to bring up the stuff that we didn't allow to come up in our childhood so that we could become the people who we're meant to be, but not without doing the work. And so many people run away from relationships because they trigger us and it feels unharmonious. But there's another way of looking at it, that very lack of harmony is perfect for you, and also a lot of us keep dating the same person because life just keeps asking us to face some of this stuff about ourselves that we're not willing to face. So I just want to sort of start to wrap up and then ask you guys if anybody wants to share. For me this week, so what I would love to accomplish in these talks is for us to talk about what's in the spiritual world. We say, what's up for us right now, right? What's going on right now? Because what will be the most fresh is for us to come and be in community and listen and share with each other about exactly what's going on right now. So this week I got some feedback from my partner, who is also my boss, because he's the CEO and I'm the COO, that we may have some external big-time investors coming in, and that there are some challenges in the business, and that I got to raise my game. And one of the things I need to do is take some business classes that I've never taken before because I studied film. And I'm highly educated, but not in this area. And I was greatly qualified to build a company till being 5 restaurants. But there are a lot of people who know how to build a company that's 100 restaurants, and I've never done that. And then also some things about my management style. But one of them really was perfect because one of the things that he gave me feedback about was that sometimes I'm too reactive and have a need to solve the problem too quickly instead of sitting back, collaborating, and waiting and doing slower problem solving, slower, more strategic problem solving. So I'm going to say to you, you know where that comes from? That comes from my difficulty, my intolerance for adversity and chaos. That comes from that same part of me from childhood that was looking to the external to feel okay. That's still the same lesson coming back up for me about I kept my life small so I could feel safe inside, so I could feel calm, so I could feel in control. And then as my life started expanding, the challenge is, how do I deeply root in my center? Because what happens is, I'm an excellent problem solver. I'm really good at that. So I just jump into damage control mode, but that's not the most enlightened approach, and that's not a big company approach. Right? So how do I really face the fact that when a problem comes up, and in the restaurant business, it's so not spiritual sometimes. It's toilets and plumbing and garbage and poop and spoiled food and complaining and people getting sick and things breaking and the fire department and the fire alarm. It's constant, which is perfect for me. Because if I'm going to be a spiritual teacher of being deep in your center, my life needs to keep pushing me down, which means it's going to have to be chaotic. So this week I was given more feedback about how I'm not quite there yet. I need to be deepening so that I can hear about some ridiculous thing like that and not get triggered, not come out of here, but take a few deep breaths. Because when I'm up here, then I'm up in my brain, and I have a really gifted brain, and I know how to solve problems. So I go into damage control mode, but I'm out of my center, and then I'm not leading from my center. And then I'm not knowing that there's peace and wholeness and perfection and that we can get through it. And then people are feeling my anxiety. And they look to me to not feel the anxiety. So I want to thank everybody for coming, but I would really love if somebody wants to share something that's up for them. It could just be the smallest thing. It doesn't have to be deep and really vulnerable, although that would be nice too. But if there's some thing that happened that you feel triggered by and that you don't really get the perfection or the lesson or the understanding, and a lot of the times I'll tell you the way to find it is, how does it make you feel? Because if something triggers you, the first question is, what am I feeling? And then the second question is, when have I felt this before? And you can start to find your way back, sometimes to that first feeling when you were 3 or 5 or 9 or 12, or sometimes to the feeling last week. But this is what Eckhart Tolle talks about as the pain body. But it's a triggering of something old, that samskara living in your body, and it is up to be seen. And I think most of us understand this. Something happens, a million things happen, right, in our lives, but something gets stuck. Something's like, I can't stop thinking about that thing that person said at work, or that thing that happened, and it's stuck. That means you're being triggered, and there's something up to be seen.